It was like a dream, the things she recalled, the moments she lived through, the tears that did fall. It was like a dream, the steps he did take, guided in the actions he found that he had to make. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. He rode into the quiet town and headed for the first saloon that showed some activity. He took a table near the back, ordered a beer, and drank slowly until he started to fall asleep. While nodding off, he heard whispers and random echoes, and a picture formed in his mind that a small rancher named Wallison had sent his crew with his cattle on the town's annual cattle drive and was alone, and he was known not to use the bank in town for his money. When the cowboy awoke, he slowly surveyed the other cowboys in the bar. Then he left and went to the stable to get his horse and ask where the Wallison ranch was. He was told that the rancher had a wife and a daughter. When he rode out of town, there was still plenty of day. He met the rancher and asked for a job during the time the rest of the ranch hands would be gone. He explained what he thought he heard in the saloon. The rancher looked at him suspiciously and incredulously and asked him to go. While riding on his way out, he met the rancher's daughter on horseback. She asked him what he was there for, and he told her he thought it would be good for him to stay and work on the ranch until the hands got back. By then the rancher rode up to meet them and chased the cowboy away. With his daughter on the cowboy's side, and against his better judgment, the rancher hired the cowboy. The cowboy had worked a couple of days when 4 men rode up to the ranch and approached the rancher when he was without his gun. The cowboy appeared behind them with his gun on and told the men the rancher's wife had a rifle in the doorway. After a long, tense, silent standoff, the 4 men rode off and thankfully never returned. The cowboy continued working until the day he heard that the ranch hands had returned to town. The rancher asked him to stay, but the cowboy said he had to move on. He said with a smile that there may be other ranchers or farmers that need his help. The cowboy said goodbye to the family and rode away. The rancher's daughter watched and cried in the dry wind. It was like a dream, the things she recalled, the moments she lived through, the tears that did fall. It was like a dream, the steps he did take, guided in the actions he found that he had to make. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. Several years later, there was trouble on the Wallison ranch. Cattle were being either killed or stolen. Line shacks were burned. The rancher had no clue as to who was responsible. A couple of his hands were wounded during their night watch. The rancher's daughter felt fear for everyone on the ranch. One night she dreamed that she saw the cowboy in the distance. She ran to him and cried in his shirt, saying, "Please come and help us. We need your help. I need for you to come." It was like a dream, the things she recalled, the moments she lived through, the tears that did fall. It was like a dream, the steps he did take, guided in the actions he found that he had to make. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. One fearful morning, 2 of the rancher's hands were seriously wounded. The rancher's daughter felt she could take no more. Then in the distance she saw 2 riders. One looked like the cowboy. He had come and brought with him a doctor. She ran to him and cried on his shoulder. She noticed a bright badge on his chest. He was now a sheriff. He explained to her that he had a dream, that she came to him and told him she needed him to come. He understood that a doctor might be needed too, and brought along the doctor from his town. What happened next seemed like a dream to the rancher's daughter. The sheriff asked the rancher to sponsor a town dance. He asked the doctor if the two seriously wounded ranch hands would be able to attend. The sheriff figured whoever was behind the attacks would attend the dance out of curiosity, while his raiders would try to burn the ranch while everyone was in town. The sheriff lucked out in his calculation. He and some deputies that arrived from his town surprised and arrested the raiders. He also got a couple of the raiders to identify their boss. Then the sheriff rode quickly into town and with the help of the rancher and his men arrested the boss and his guards at the dance. The sheriff and the doctor left a couple of days later. The rancher's daughter did not cry when they left, for the sheriff had invited the family to visit him and the doctor back in his town. However, the rancher's wife did shed some tears when she kissed him and the doctor goodbye. It was like a dream, the things she recalled, the moments she lived through, the tears that did fall. It was like a dream, the steps he did take, guided in the actions he found that he had to make. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. A few weeks later, the rancher's daughter prodded her family to take the trip to the sheriff's town. There they found the sheriff wounded by a stray bullet while stopping a street brawl, and now in a fever. The rancher's daughter came to him while the doctor was there looking in on him and cried as she held his hand. I need you to stay alive and live, just as you need me to be here for you. We're in each other's dreams. He felt her warm tears on his hand and touched her face. In the dream, he asked her to tell the man of the stray bullet not to worry, because she was there to nurse him back to health. It was several days before the sheriff showed signs of improvement. The doctor told the sheriff to thank the rancher's daughter and not him, at least not too much. It was a week later that the sheriff and the rancher's daughter wed on a bright sunny day in the town's little church, and she cried in his arms. It was like a dream, the things she recalled, the moments she lived through, the tears that did fall. It was like a dream, the steps he did take, guided in the actions he found that he had to make. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn. Crying in the dry wind can burn, but it can sharpen your vision at a turn.